4 weeks before my wedding, my mother left a voicemail that sounded sweet enough for strangers, but sharp enough to cut me open. Honey, we can't make it. Verity's charity cruise is the same evening, and your father has important people to meet. You understand, right? I stood in the hallway of my small house outside Nashville, still holding my wedding shoes in one hand, and I listened to that message 3 times. My name is Maren Whitlock. I was 36, a biomedical device designer, the kind of daughter who got awards, patents, scholarships, and still could not get one clear place on her own family's wall. My older sister Verity had always been the golden one. She got the birthday speeches, the framed photos, the first questions at dinner. I got, "That's nice, sweetheart," and silence. So when they chose a river cruise over watching me walk down the aisle, I did not cry in front of them. I did not beg. I simply wore my grandmother's pearl comb in my hair and married the man they had called plain. They had no idea who Silas Harlan really was, but by midnight more than 6 million people would know. I grew up in Fairhope, Tennessee, in a house where everything looked perfect from the sidewalk. My father, Conrad Whitlock, ran a respected accounting firm, and my mother, Celeste, treated the town garden club like it was the United Nations. Verity was beauty, charm, and soft laughter. I was homework, lab reports, and quiet corners. When I won a state science prize at 14, my father said, "Good job, Maren, but try to be more social like Verity." When Verity placed second in a county pageant, my mother ordered a cake and invited half the neighborhood. Our living room had 14 framed pictures of Verity. Dance photos, pageant photos, cruise photos, engagement-style photos with her rich boyfriend, Nolan Crest. There was one picture of me from a family picnic, and my face was half hidden behind a paper plate. I used to tell myself it didn't matter. Then one Christmas, I came home and saw that even that photo was gone. In its place was Verity standing beside Nolan on the deck of his family's boat. That was the day I understood something cold. In my family, love had a seating chart, and my chair had always been near the exit. Silas came into my life at a medical technology seminar in Denver. He wore a faded brown jacket, old boots, and had the calmest eyes I had ever seen. He asked me a question about one of my cardiac monitoring designs, not to show off, but because he had actually read my paper. That alone almost made me cry. 6 months later, he was fixing my kitchen cabinet and making terrible coffee in my house like he had always belonged there. He told me he ran a healthcare software company. "Small but growing," he said. He drove an old pickup truck, used coupons at the grocery store, and once argued with a clerk over a wrong $3 charge. When I brought him home, my father looked him up and down and asked, "So, software? Like hospital billing?" Silas smiled and said, "Something like that." My mother pulled me into the pantry later and whispered, "He seems kind, honey, but he is not exactly Nolan Crest." Verity laughed when she saw his truck. "Maren, you always did like charity projects." Silas heard it. He never mentioned it on the drive home. He just reached over, held my hand, and said, "You don't have to shrink for people who only recognize shine." We planned a small wedding at Willow Bend Orchard, a quiet place with apple trees, wooden benches, and a white barn at the edge of the property. My grandmother May had taken me there when I was little, back when she could still walk without help. She was the only one in my family who ever clapped for me without looking around first to see who else was watching. When I told her my parents might not come, she said, "Baby, people who love you do not need a better offer to show up." I sent invitations anyway. My parents did not answer for 2 weeks. Verity sent one text. "Cute place. Very you." Then came my mother's voicemail. Nolan's family was hosting a luxury donor cruise on the Cumberland River. There would be investors, local politicians, and wealthy clients. My father called afterward and made it worse. "Maren, don't turn this into a tragedy. Your wedding is simple. Verity's event could change things for this family." I asked him, "Am I not this family?" He sighed like I was being difficult. "You know what I mean?" Yes, I did. I had known my whole life. 3 weeks before the wedding, Verity Video called me from a boutique dressing room holding up a silver gown for the cruise. "You're not actually mad, are you?" she asked, smiling like I was a child refusing to share. "Mom says you're being cold." I said, "You called my wedding cute." She laughed. "Maren, it is cute. Apple trees, folding chairs, a barn. It's sweet, but Nolan's cruise has senators coming. People can't rearrange real life for every emotional moment." Every emotional moment. My wedding had been reduced to an emotional moment. I looked at my sister, at her perfect hair, her perfect nails, her perfect little life built on everyone stepping aside for her, and something inside me finally stopped reaching. "Enjoy the cruise," I said. "Wait, are you mad?" "No," I told her. "I'm finished." Then I ended the call. If you have ever been the invisible one in your own family, you know that feeling. It is not anger. Anger is hot. This was colder, cleaner. It was the moment I stopped asking why they did not choose me and started choosing myself. The day before the wedding, Willowbend Orchard looked like a memory someone had polished. White lights hung between apple trees. Long wooden tables were covered with simple flowers. Silas's mother helped tie ribbons around chairs, and his father fixed a loose step on the barn porch without being asked. My grandmother May arrived in a wheelchair, wearing red lipstick and holding a small velvet box. Inside was her pearl hair comb. "Your mother wanted this years ago for Verity," she said. I told her no. Some things belong to the one who understands them. I hugged her so hard, she told me I was crushing her bones. That afternoon, I noticed camera crews near the barn. Not a cousin with a phone, real cameras, a drone, boom mics, a woman with a headset. Silas said, "It's for a company profile. They wanted a few personal shots." I was too tired, too full, too nervous to ask much more. My best friend, Tessa, pulled me aside and whispered, "Maren, those are not wedding videographers. One of them has a national network badge." I looked at Silas across the orchard. He looked back with guilt in his eyes. I should have asked then, but I was getting married in less than 24 hours, and for once, I wanted joy more than answers. At 5 o'clock the next evening, two worlds opened at the same time. On the Cumberland River, Nolan Crest's luxury cruise pulled away from the dock with champagne, music, polished shoes, and people who measured worth by handshakes. My father wore a navy suit and told everyone about Verity's bright future. My mother posted a video of the sunset over the water with the caption, "A perfect family night." At Willowbend Orchard, I stood alone at the start of the aisle. 4 chairs in the front row had ivory ribbons on them. Mother, father, sister, Nolan. All empty. My grandmother sat beside them, small and fierce in her wheelchair, mouthing, "Walk." So I walked. No father's arm, no mother's tears, no sister fixing my veil, just my own feet on the grass, my grandmother's pearls in my hair, and Silas waiting under an old apple tree with his hands shaking. For once, walking alone did not feel like abandonment. It felt like evidence. I had survived every empty chair they ever gave me, and I was still moving forward. Silas's vows were simple. "Maren, you spent your life thinking love had to be earned. I promise you, in this marriage, love will be the floor, not the prize." I nearly broke right there. My vows were even shorter. "I do not need you to rescue me. I need you to stay honest, stay kind, and stay." He whispered, "Always." We kissed. The guests stood. My grandmother hit the arm of her wheelchair and shouted, "About time." People laughed and cried. The cameras caught everything, including the 4 empty chairs. During the reception, while I danced with my grandmother in her wheelchair, Silas finally pulled me onto the quiet porch behind the barn. His face was pale. "I should have told you sooner," he said. "Harlan Medical Systems is not small. We are going public next week. Current valuation is around $8.2 billion. I still own 41%. I stared at him. "Silas, you compare peanut butter prices." He nodded. "I still will." I wanted to be angry. Part of me was. But then he said, "You were the first person who never looked at me like a number. I was scared to lose that." Behind us, someone called out, "30 seconds to air." At 9 o'clock, a national television special opened with Silas walking through a glass lab while a narrator said, "Silas Harlan, founder of Harlan Medical Systems, may be the quietest billionaire in American healthcare technology." Then the screen cut to our wedding. Apple trees, white lights, me walking alone. The narrator said, "Tonight, Harlan married biomedical designer Maren in a small Tennessee orchard, surrounded by close friends, his parents, and her grandmother." On the cruise, a bartender had the television on over the bar. Someone looked up, then someone else. Then Nolan froze. My mother saw me on screen and dropped her smile so fast people noticed. My father pushed through the crowd and stared at the caption under Silas's face. $8.2 billion valuation. Founder, majority owner, medical technology leader. The same man he had called hospital billing was now being praised on national television. Then the camera showed my empty family chairs. A woman beside my mother said, "Celeste, isn't that your daughter's wedding? Why are her family seats empty?" My mother had no answer. For once, the silence belonged to them. My phone started buzzing before the cake was cut. First my mother. "Honey, call me. We had no idea." Then my father. "Maren, we need to discuss this immediately." Then Verity. "Why didn't you tell us who he was? This is embarrassing." That word almost made me laugh. Embarrassing. Not missing my wedding, not insulting my husband, not choosing a cruise over their daughter. The embarrassment was being seen. I read the messages while Silas stood beside me, quiet and steady. My mother texted, "I love you so much." She had not written those words to me in years. They arrived only after a money figure crossed a television screen. I typed one reply to all three of them. Not a speech, not a paragraph, just one laughing emoji. Then I handed my phone to Tessa and went back to dance with my husband. Sometimes revenge is not screaming. Sometimes revenge is letting people meet the consequences they created while you keep dancing under the lights. By morning, the clip had been watched more than 6 million times. Someone found my mother's perfect family night cruise post and placed it beside the image of me walking alone. Same time, same evening. 2 captions told the whole story. Online comments were brutal. They skipped their daughter's wedding for a rich man's cruise, and her husband turned out to be richer than all of them. Grandma was the only real family there. Those empty chairs said everything. My mother deleted her post, but screenshots are faster than regret. A local paper ran a headline, "Fair Hope family misses $1 billion wedding for donor cruise." My father's clients started asking questions. Nolan's investors pulled back because nobody wanted to be tied to a public joke. Verity called me crying 2 weeks later, not to apologize, but to ask whether Silas might invest in Nolan's failing development deal. I said, "Verity, you called my wedding a folding chair event." She sobbed. "That was before." I answered, "Exactly." Then I hung up. A week after the wedding, my parents came to my house with flowers and a bottle of expensive wine, like guilt could be wrapped in tissue paper. My father started first. "We made a mistake." I asked, "Which mistake, missing my wedding or not knowing my husband was rich?" My mother cried immediately. "That is unfair." I said, "No, Mom. Unfair was saving 4 chairs for people who were drinking champagne 200 miles away." My father tried to recover. "Maybe we can start fresh. Perhaps Silas and Nolan could have a business conversation." I actually laughed, not the emoji this time. A real laugh. "You drove 3 hours to apologize and still brought a pitch." His face turned red. I stood and opened the door. "If Silas made $60,000 a year and still drove that old truck, would you be here?" Neither of them answered. That was the answer. They left with the flowers still on my coffee table, and I threw them away after the door closed. The hard part came later, after the internet moved on. Because pain does not end when strangers stop clapping for you. My mother mailed me a framed photo from the wedding with one sentence on the back. This should have been on our wall years ago. I did not reply, but I kept it in a drawer. Verity sent one real message months later after Nolan's deal collapsed. I think I am finally learning what it feels like to be the daughter everyone is disappointed in. I stared at that message for a long time. I did not forgive her fully. I did not hate her either. I wrote back, "If you want to talk without asking me for money or access, you can call." That was not a wide open door. It was a crack. Sometimes healing is not letting people back in. Sometimes healing is deciding exactly how far the door opens. My grandmother May passed away the next spring, peacefully, with a quilt over her knees and my wedding photo on her nightstand. Silas and I started a small scholarship in her name for women in engineering who had no one cheering in the front row. Every year when I speak to those students, I tell them the same thing. Do not wait for empty chairs to become full before you believe your life is real. Do not measure your worth by who missed your day. Plant something where the absence used to be. I still visit Willowben Orchard sometimes. The grass has grown where those 4 chairs stood. Wildflowers come up there now, bright and stubborn. I used to think those chairs proved I was unwanted. Now I understand they gave me space. Space to walk, space to breathe, space to finally stop saving seats for people who only came looking for me after the world told them I was valuable. So if you are listening to this and you have spent years trying to earn love from people who keep moving the price, hear me clearly. Walk yourself down the aisle. Wear the pearls. Sign the papers. Build the life. Let them choose the cruise, the party, the golden child, the richer room. One day, they may look up and realize they missed the only moment that mattered. And when they call, panicked and sweet, and suddenly full of love, you do not owe them a speech. You do not owe them rage. You do not even owe them sadness. Sometimes one laughing emoji is enough, not because it hurts them, because it frees you. My parents chose a luxury cruise over my wedding. 6 million people saw what they missed. But the best part was not their shame. The best part was this. By the time they finally saw me, I no longer needed them to.